Welcome, everyone, back to All Elite Wrestling's Unrestricted, the official AEW podcast. Tony Schiavone and Aubrey Edwards. And we're very happy to have with us our boss.
Man.
Hey, what's up, guys?
The president, CEO of All Elite Wrestling, Tony Khan. Tony, how you been, bud?
I'm great, Tony. How are you? It's great to see you.
Yeah, it's great to be talking to you again. Aubrey, it's great to be talking with you. And
it's just so great. I miss everybody.
This has been extraordinary times for not only for us, but for the world. And we have continued to put out shows each and every week. And we're going to talk about the challenges and some of the things that we have done to put those shows together.
Yeah, it's kind of a interesting, unique challenge. It's not like anyone's had practice like putting on live content during a pandemic. So
right. We'll be back live as this podcast drops tonight, once again on TNT.
Yeah.
So, Tony, that's got to be exciting to be back live.
I can't wait to be back live with you guys. By now, we haven't seen each other in person in several weeks since the beginning of April, and we've caught up on the phone a lot. And we've had staff calls and stuff, and catch up. And I catch up with Tony on the production side a ton on almost a daily basis. But we haven't really seen each other in person, but the shows have been going great, and I'm excited to get back with you guys live. This past week's show was one of my favorite shows, and I think everything we did in Georgia at these tapings kind of built to a big finish, and the semifinals were awesome, and you guys have both been awesome, both behind the scenes and on the show, and I can't wait to talk more about what's been going on in the past month, and also how we created these shows that have aired the past month.
So I kind of want to start talking about like when everything started to happen. We were in Salt Lake City. It was the 11th of March. And I know Jericho had mentioned this somewhere else that like he went out for a match and came back and the NBA had shut down.
Yeah.
So Tony, what was your like viewpoint of everything happening? Because you sit in the go position, you're calling times throughout the whole show, but you're also like king of multitasking and whatnot. So like what was going through your head when all this was happening?
I mean, I knew there was a good chance that the Rochester show for the following week, and then obviously the Newark show the following week were not going to come off. And we had to pivot and think about all these things. And I think what was really hard for me was that I didn't want to force anybody to come to work under these circumstances. So when we were in Salt Lake City, you guys were in there, and I told everybody, this is totally voluntary from here on out. Next week's show, I don't know if it's going to be in Rochester or in Jacksonville, but we're going to be in one or the other, and we had to figure it out pretty quick, honestly. I had to figure out that, by the next morning where we were going to be, because the trucks needed to know where to take the ring and the set. So,
yeah.
and it was a long drive from Salt Lake City, so we had to figure this stuff out. Guys started moving eastward, but really that night I knew that we were going to have to make a lot of changes if we wanted to keep putting on shows, and I talked to the network, and they were excited for us to keep putting on shows. And at that point, I just, like I said, in Salt Lake City was when I thought I would make it really crystal clear to you guys that this is a totally voluntary enterprise, and I'm glad. Some people have taken me up on it. I'm glad, because the last thing I'd want is anybody to feel like uncomfortable in a working environment.
And you've been really consistent with that too. Like you had mentioned, like we've had staff calls and whatnot, kind of just to keep everyone up to speed on everything that's happening, that it's consistently said time and time again, like if you don't feel comfortable traveling or you don't want to come out, safety of our roster and our staff is number one, which is just, I mean, like one more reason why I think all of us love working here. Cause it's like, you legitimately care about our health and safety.
I really do. I mean, not both of you specifically, but there are lots of other people here too. And no, seriously, that's it. And so in Salt Lake City, that was my biggest focus was where are we going to be and how are we going to do this? And then, and then what kind of show is it going to be? And then I had, people in 8 billion different directions with questions or ideas, and really had to decide, we're going to do a show in Jacksonville, and anybody who wants to come, I'd love to have them, and we'll put together the best shows we can. And probably the two best shows that we've done since the shutdown would be, I think, the first one we did and the most recent one we did, this last week's show. I love them both. Thank you.
They were great. I was wondering now, so now we know that basically things are shut down, but we don't know how long they're shut down for. So we start doing a live show in front of no one. and then we start taping matches. When did you think that maybe we needed to start taping matches, or when do you think we had to stop going live each week?
Well, that's a great question. We hadn't taped any matches until the beginning of the month, right? We did
Right.
3 live shows.
Right.
And we started out in Jacksonville, and then we ended up after the first 2 shows moved to Norcross, Georgia.
Right.
And we were in Atlanta area, and a lot of the talent lives in the Florida, Georgia area. So we had a crew mostly comprised of people from Florida and Georgia.
It's only a 6-hour drive, so.
Yeah, and it's a hike. I'm not saying it's an easy trip, but in the wrestling business, these are not considered the longest of hauls. Like and I was really glad everybody made it up there safe, and we, frankly, like the shows being great, that was awesome. It was obviously secondary to everybody's safety and everybody coming and feeling good and having a good time, which we all did, and this was we all got back healthy, and everyone's been well the last month. And for me, I first, Tony, to your question, had an inkling that things are going to get shut down going into that 3rd show, which is when we taped all these shows.
Right.
We kind of going in, I had a feeling that, you'd heard that you saw states were starting to shut down, and I never considered us or tried to force us to be like an essential business. I never tried to stay open against restrictions. And so when we heard that Florida and Georgia were going to shut down, we were shutting down too. And we needed to tape as much content as we could before that shutdown. So we were actually at the live television show, and you guys were both there at the beginning of April. And so on April 1st, I had thought that maybe we should stay together and do some taping. And I wasn't sure how long we were going to need to tape for, but I had set it up where we had the ability to keep people in the Georgia area, and everybody wanted to stay, and we'd be able to accommodate everybody. I told people when they came, might be here for a couple days if everybody's okay with that, because we might need to tape extra shows. I don't know. And then, as this was kind of coming off, we had basically, we thought we had a couple days to get all this stuff done and to talk to people, come up with ideas, figure stuff out. We had a really limited crew. Then going into the live show, thought, let's get through this live show, because that's pretty hard to do every week as it is. And we'll get through this live show. We'll regroup. I have some ideas, and here's stuff we can do the next couple days, and we're going to put great shows together. Let's get through tonight. Well, then, going into the live show, the Florida and Georgia both announced the shutdowns,
right?
Which was, I think, 2 hours before this live show. And if I could go back a little bit to the first Jacksonville show we did, like I said, my favorite of these shows since Salt Lake City, since we shut down, are probably the first one we did in Jacksonville and the most recent one we aired this past week.
Yeah, so March 18th.
Yeah, exactly. March 18th, and then this last week's episode, which would be April 29th.
Yes.
So the March 18th episode, what we started doing with an audience of wrestlers around the ring, when I went from Salt Lake City and decided we're going to go out to Jacksonville that weekend, I watched a lot of other programming. I watched a lot of wrestling and watched a lot of other stuff too, and tried to get a feel for what people were doing with the restrictions and without an audience. And the thing that really captivated me, I have a really good friend who is a writer for Jimmy Fallon, and he works on The Tonight Show. And I watched the shows Jimmy Fallon was doing without an audience, and he had his writers and his band in the studio as a small group of people. And that, their laughter, that exchange they had, it made all the difference. And I watched other talk shows where they were just out there kind of cold, and I thought that The Tonight Show and Jimmy Fallon were really onto something, and I thought that's kind of what we wanted to do. So that was kind of the beginning of the weekend. So I was like, okay, here's this is what we could do with these shows that could be interesting. The next day, I was like, oh, we could have a babyface side and a heel side. This could be great, 2 sidelines, and that was good too. And then I started to think of it as the Rogues Gallery. and like brainstorming on stuff like, Flip by Saved by the Bell. And I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be cool if like MJF and Spears were like Zach and Slater
like
making football bets, like, but wrestling bets instead of like football bets like Zach and Slater would make. God. And that was like just trying to like have fun with it. And that show, that show was excellent. Well then, trying to do the best shows we can, going to, like I said, made this move to Georgia. We hear like less than 2 hours before the live show that this is happening, that we're shutting down. So when Tony asked, like, when we knew for sure, well, that's when I knew for sure. And like, we thought maybe like, let's be smart. Let's tape some stuff, have it in the can, just in case. But then it's like, guys, we don't know when states are going to reopen. As much as we can tape now, it'll behoove us. And we had a very limited crew, and we had less than a third, about roughly just over a quarter of the roster was there of the contract wrestlers, and that's for a variety of reasons. There's people who weren't available, people who just didn't feel good about coming, and that's great. I was just glad we had the group we had. Mm-hmm. It was very much like it felt like putting these tapings together would be like taping TV for a territory, taping mm-hmm. a month of TV. Right. And Tony, like, you've got extensive experience in the wrestling business with tapings, and limited amount of people to work with, and you have to make the best of what you can, and also we utilize some enhancement talent. But what was really great for me was like, okay, the people who are here, they want to be here, and I never wanted people to have to work multiple matches in a 24-hour period. I was hoping we could stretch this out, but then they didn't allow us, that luxury.
But I knew you were trying to get us to like do like half of them Thursday and then half of them Friday, so we had some time to rest and all that. And
that was my thing. I would be happy to pay for another day of production.
Exactly.
It is another day, but then after this, we're going to shut down. But everything we wanted to do, I thought we could do over a couple days.
Right.
And I had a rough idea in my head of what some of this stuff was. But again, it was stuff we were going to lay down. I was going to sit down and talk to people about ideas, and that just wasn't going to happen because we literally less than 2 hours before the show, we get all this hits. So I realized, okay, well, there's Friday's off the table. Right. And not only is Friday off the table, but we need to start taping matches right after this live show ends. And I am going to have to write logical formats for like at least a month of television, because that's like, I can't see us coming back and doing this. And, and given what the states have said, there's no way. I was prepared to go longer. I think the shows were better for the fact that, Florida has reopened and we were able to go back and now feel comfortable doing a show without an audience, but still with a small crew of volunteer performers. I think it'll be a lot more people than we've had in recent weeks, but it allowed us to kind of put our best foot forward and not put a lot of filler in, especially this past week's show, which was all action. But we were prepared to kind of stretch more. So it's less than 2 hours before the show, and Tony knows where I'm going. I know, who's seen a lot of this firsthand, frankly, is Tony Schiavone. And in WCW, I know they put a lot of stuff together at the last minute.
Oh boy, and you're not kidding.
He's probably seen a lot of this, and it's just much to bounce. So I'm like sitting in the corner of my trailer out back, like with a pen and paper, and I started scribbling down arcs. And the best thing we had going was this tournament. Yeah. Cody and I had been working on this idea for a long time that we really wanted to bring another title, and I came up with this thing, the TNT Championship, because I'm so proud of the partnership, and they're such great partners for us. And it's there's AEW and there's TNT, and it's like, we're the company, and that's our channel, and that's where you find us, and it's synonymous with us.
We're a team.
It's synonymous with and it's synonymous with Dynamite. So it felt very natural to me there'd be an AEW champion, there'd be a TNT champion. It's like the social media handles each have a champion. It's like there's an AEW and TNT champion now, which will be the winner of Lance versus Cody, and there's the AEW champion, which is Mox, and so it felt right, and we've been kicking this idea around, and a lot of the people that frankly, wanted to be in this, were available. And really the 4 key people you've seen in this tournament were Cody and Dustin and Darby and Lance. And it's all about this huge match now we have for Double or Nothing with Lance and Cody. It's a match we've wanted to build. We've been building it since before the shutdown. We started building this a long time ago. And there's a lot of other stories in that tournament we built that were built up, like Cody versus Darby and Cody versus Dustin and Cody and Dustin together, and with Spears, and with, especially the Sammy and Darby story. Their match even called back to Revolution and put you in the difficult position of, the match hadn't started yet, which is the same stunt that, Darby pulled on Sammy at Revolution, and Sammy flipped around on him. So we have like a lot of stories to call back on, and we also, got to feature Colt and Kip. But like the key part of this story, was like Cody and Darby and Lance and Dustin were all available, and it was like, we don't have to tear this thing up. We can do this. This could be a bedrock, like a core focus of the TV. So I had that in my back pocket. Other than that, we didn't have a lot. I just had the people there. The tag team division, we had the best tag team division in the world. And now this week, like tonight, the tag teams, like a lot of people are back, and we're going to have finally, be able to pay full service to the division. But we were able to keep focus on the tag team division. One of our top teams, now a top team here for us and top ranked team, Best Friends, had been working their way up, and they're so hot, and we all love the Best Friends.
Love them.
And by Best Friends and Orange Cassidy being there, I mean, what a huge part of the TV, right? So, like, we're going to do the behind the scenes. So it's like we had the tournament. So those guys are in, like, every episode, and they helped us keep this thing together. They helped keep the tag teams together. We didn't have any other tag teams, guys, that were there. So had to, like, Kenny and Nakazawa had been partners in Japan, and I asked Kenny if he'd be okay. Nakazawa was there, and it was like, trying to make use of, and Kenny was great. He was like, yeah, he's very excited. And there were no agents. So there were agents, but they were all wrestling or performing. So they all had stuff. So, QT was with me at times, but he was also helping people get ready for other stuff. And obviously, Cody and Dustin are in the tournament. And Billy Gunn was out there with Austin as a spectator. So we didn't have a lot of coaches. So I had to, not only am I kind of producing the announcers, which maybe with you and Chris, I did a little more than I usually would, Tone. But you guys, we did really well. And going back to the Best Friends, it was like Kenny and Nakazawa are a team. Kenny gave me all of their old Japanese double team moves, which I made sure to get into Tony, so Tony could tell everybody the hentai slide.
Oh my God!
And look, I'm gonna be 100% honest. Like, I'll just shoot from the hip here on the Unrestricted show with you guys. Would not have probably been the first thing I would have done or the first thing I would have put on, but we were like pretty limited. We had like just over 25% of the people were there. I think 29% of the contract wrestlers were there, so I had to be creative and do some things that I probably wouldn't have been the first thing I would have done. But that ended up being an important match for us. And then the other thing was built a story with Chuck and Kip. They had a finish with Jimmy and Orange Cassidy, which led to Orange Cassidy versus Jimmy, which led into the no DQ, no countout match. That was a great match on this past week's show. So there was like logical arcs of those guys, but they were so important to the shows. And then speaking of Kip and Jimmy, I mean, these guys, they're important wrestlers for us in AEW, but they weren't on every episode of Dynamite. No. But the past month, these guys really stepped up for us. And now I'll remember that now, but now, sure, MJF is back, Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are back, and the whole Inner Circle's back. And we have a great crew of people coming back together tonight. But at the same time, I mean, not actually tonight, but like when people are seeing this next week for us. But
this is coming out the day of the show, so kayfabe tonight.
If it was the day of the show, we'd all be. Let's be honest, we'd be together. So this is like, but we are.
We're teleporting.
This is for us. This is a pretty topical episode to keep it in the same way. Like based on what happened last week, we know that one of the big matches on Double or Nothing. We got the first ever TNT champion with Lance versus Cody, and the culmination of those tapings, the great Lance versus Dustin match and Cody versus Darby and everything that got us here. All those people and everybody that worked these tapings, I am eternally grateful for. I love everybody that works here. Everybody that here is great. Something I've really put an emphasis on over the shutdown is we haven't let anybody go and tried to take care of everybody through this. I think it's not the right time for reorganizing or restructuring or any of that kind of stuff for us. And really, I just want to take care of everybody and make sure everybody's comfortable. And to everybody, I'm really grateful for everybody in AEW and the people that you guys and the 23 wrestlers and everybody. I'm really grateful because we did a great month of TV and kept this thing going, and we're in a great position now. We came off what I think is, fans and people in the business alike thought was a great show. And, the numbers were like up in the 18 to 49, which is our bread and butter thing we get paid on. And the 18 to 34 specifically, we were up 19% in the 18 to 34 this week, which is really nice. And so I'm really grateful to you guys in particular, and ladies first, Aubrey. In 24 hours, you refereed 20 matches?
20, yeah. Because
20
you had told
matches
me
in 24 hours.
Yeah, so you had told me, like, we knew about the empty arena match, and we knew what episode that was going to be on. So as soon as we filmed that, you're like, hey, you have to do all the matches on episode 2 because of continuity. I'm like, okay,
Because
cool.
I didn't want Paul. It would be weird if you're in Georgia and Paul's in Florida. We never said this live or tried to fool, but it's just like, you don't want to suspend the disbelief either. We were kind of pitching from, Tony and Chris in Georgia to JR in Florida. So I thought, why would Paul be in 2 places at once? So why, Mox and Jake aren't here. So I thought it was very logical, but I appreciated you doing it. But that was only show 2, and there were several other shows where you also refereed a lot of matches. So
there's a lot to talk about this. Obviously, like we'll keep going and whatnot, but this is AEW Unrestricted, talking a lot about all of the crazy changes that happened last minute. We come back, we'll just keep talking all the stories and all of the creative changes that had to happen last minute. This is AEW Unrestricted. We're talking about all the craziness that happened, Jacksonville, Norcross. Tony had mentioned I ref 20 matches in 24 hours. Like, part of that was continuity. I remember distinctly, like, coming back and Paul Turner's like, hey, we're not sure the editing order, so you have to do all of this episode 2. And I literally just run back out. I think I did like 9 in a row. And there's so much happening so quickly. Like, I didn't know the baby oil was going to be happening in the tag match. I just knew who was going over. I didn't know about the ladder spot with Sammy Darby. They're like, yeah, we got some stuff before the bell. It'll be fine. I'm like, okay, cool. So it's a lot of just like boom, 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 boom. You're just going with the flow, just trying to move as quickly as possible because there's so much shit happening that day. It was insane.
Yeah, that was it. That was it. And I tried as best, and I tried as best we could to tape the matches in an order where it would take care of the wrestlers. And obviously, want to be sensitive to you guys also.
I got good cardio. That's fine.
First and foremost, like protecting the wrestlers, and you couldn't ask people to do so many matches back to back to back. Also had to be sensitive to people that wanted to get out and get back on the road Thursday night, and versus people who were going to stay over or lived around Atlanta. So we and it was basically putting together like a taping schedule, and there were a couple different ways these shows could have aired. Like, I knew that this could be possibly, a month's worth of stuff. This could be 6 to 8 weeks worth of stuff if we need to rely more on video packages or whatever, like we need to do to get, thankfully it never really came to that. And especially this past week's show, I think was one of the most action-packed, great shows, bell to bell we've had in terms of like awesome stuff. But, as you guys know from being there and all over the shows, it was a challenging 24 hours, putting it all together and going to people and asking, would you be comfortable doing this? And it's a lot in a day, but everybody was really excited about it. Now, the group of people that were there were really hungry. And it was also, frankly, by the time we got through it, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Aubrey's saying, we ref 20 matches in 24 hours. Tony, you and I have talked offline about this. So, you were there from step one of this thing, because a couple hours before the show, you're getting ready to do a live television show, and I asked you to come out to my trailer,
right.
And I've got the tournament plan that we've been working on. I've got the roster of people there, and just started throwing matches and a match order together, and then didn't really get much, if any, sleep, like a little sleep.
You don't sleep.
In between. I sleep. I actually do sleep some. I'm smart about it, but like I try to plan like windows when it makes sense. But I do spend a lot of hours working every day, and like This was one of those times where we had to get at it. And I was up late working on this, and then came in and had to. It was a rush to get finishes to people without agents, without coaches, and going person to person and making sure everybody was cool with all the stuff they were doing. But like, God bless all the people that were there. And so Tony was with me, kind of like, I brought him in almost to keep me sane. Cause like, I was like, I could do this, I could do this, I could do this. And Tony was like, that sounds good. That
sounds good. You got to move this match here. We got to do this.
Yeah.
This is show 1. This is show 2. This is show 3.
Got to make sure you're not crazy.
Yeah, the continuity. He was like, it was really nice to have like a sounding board person to bounce stuff off of, especially because like Cody was about to wrestle like that live television match against, with teaming with Darby against Sabian and Spears. So, I told him, I was like, I'm going to put together enough stuff to get us through. And, I went to him after and kind of showed him. He's like, wow, this looks awesome. And like, it was like a cool thing. We were like really proud. We not only got through these shows, but really the last few weeks, but like really great episodes from this. It was like a really nice moment between us. Like, Cody's like a historian of wrestling, and I think he appreciated like the DIY spirit of the whole thing, that we were just trying to make like great shows with what we had, because we were in a tough situation, and people like the two of you stepped up. So, Tony seeing this all out and then being the voice of it and being the person trusted to like, tell these stories, and a lot of it. So ton of it that day, came together very late. And frankly, on Wednesday night, when we finished the live show, let's be honest, we didn't know Chris was coming in the next day.
No, did not know that. Right.
20 something, which we're about to get into. But so Chris called me right after we finished the live show and said, "What are you doing?" And I told him, I was like, "We're about to start taping matches, and then we're going to, all get some sleep and come back in, and we're just going to tape matches, and everybody's going to rotate, and we're going to get enough stuff to get us through this, and with great shows, however we can do it." I got a plan, and I started to tell him some of this stuff. And it was like, I'm really counting on Orange Cassidy versus Jimmy Havoc to pull a rating. And it's not like out of nowhere. There's like a story, like it came out of Kip versus, I told him these things, and I'm really counting on this no DQ match. Boy, did the best friends and Kip and Jimmy deliver that. And I told him what's going on with the tournament. And I told him the hottest thing in wrestling right now, and by the time we get through this, is going to be Lance Archer. And
dude's insane.
And he is. And I told him the stories and what we're going to do. And he was like, "This is going to be great." And Chris said, he just right before I really got into much detail, he was like, "I'm coming." And I was like, "That's insane." Cause I wasn't sure. Everybody's on the fence, and it's a tough time. And Chris said, "I'm going to come, and I'm going to do commentary on the whole thing." And I was like, "That's insane." And to be honest, I didn't have anybody to do it. And Colt and Spears were wrestling a ton as it was. And if you talk about stuff that would have been challenging for continuity, I was going to have Colt and Spears split it up. Right. And I was going to have Spears do a lot of it, and then I was going to have Colt, because it was like we had very few people there. And they would have been great. Colt has been great on commentary, and Spears has been great, and they've been great on Dark, and Colt's done great on Dynamite too. And but Chris is one of the greatest of all time, and also now we know Chris is one of the best commentators of all time.
Dude's insane.
He's amazing. Chris and Tony are like one of my favorite announced teams ever, and I'm sure even though Chris is going to be back in the ring on tonight's show, I am sure it won't be the last time we see him. So that was huge. And Tony and Colt were actually doing matches after we kind of went off. After on the first, on the first, after we went off on the live show, we started taping matches. And, you'd been doing commentary with Cody, and then Cody went to wrestle. And, Colt came out, and then you kept announcing with Colt, but that stuff, some of that stuff hasn't actually seen the light of day. And although he did Kip versus Chuck, but then you and Chris ended up doing that in post production.
Right.
And
yeah,
then,
look, I never did know. We talked about getting together very late after that show was over on the 1st. Now we go into the 2nd of April, and we see all these matches that we have to do. And I didn't know Chris was coming in. And then everybody said Chris is coming in. And I really think, Tony, I think that Chris's appearance there made all the difference in the world on 2 levels, because he was so good at commentary, but because here's Chris Jericho coming out and just sitting at that table and doing those matches. Just boom. And showed some great leadership. And I think it helped motivate everybody that day.
Yeah, I do too. And it helped motivate through what we can talk about now is like one of the most challenging days. I think I've seen, and you've been in the wrestling business now for close to 40 years, Tone.
Feels that way.
Off and on.
Oh. Yeah, right.
Is it not? No, seriously.
No, my first year was 1983 was my first year.
So 37 years.
Okay, there you go.
That's close.
Yeah. So I was not far. And
God.
You told me that you've never called as many matches as you did
ever.
In a 24-hour period.
Never.
And I never wanted it to be like this, or us to have to do this. But thanks for doing it. I thank you many times, and I thank you again.
Well, I listened back to it, and I'm thinking that because being wrestling in almost 40 years, we used to do matches at Disney, but we never called all the matches. We would call maybe the first hour, and then because of continuity, we would just do them all in post. And we did a lot of matches back in the 90s at Disney and at Universal, but never did we sit down and do commentary like that. And I remember driving back home very, very late or early morning on the 2nd, thinking, I got to get my voice ready to go. I don't know if my voice can do this. And that was a real concern. I never was concerned about being able to put the guys over or tell the story, but I was concerned about my voice lasting. And then when I got there that day and saw all the list of matches, I'm thinking,
oh, that list.
Boy, this is going to be tough. And then I thought that first. And then I heard, well, Jericho's going to be with you. And I'm thinking, oh, that is great because he knows how to talk. I mean, just having him with us and being able to sit down and do that, I thought as we went along, my voice got stronger. And, I drank like Tony Khan amounts of water that day.
Gallons and gallons.
Gallons of water. But it was, I really think, one of the maybe the most challenging day as a wrestling announcer I've ever had.
Well, I'm sorry. It came out great. You were amazing. And here we are. And
yeah, that's right.
And then let's tell people more behind the scenes stuff that since then it's been very different because we talk and work together on the shows every week.
Right.
On both the stuff you do on screen and off screen in the production capacity. But you've been instrumental in production of these shows because so much of this has been in post production, not just the commentary, which you've been fantastic going back and some stuff we had to read, like the matches we did Wednesday that we redid with Chris and just little things like that. And I really appreciate it. You're so valuable to us. And in a time like this, you really got to show it. And I really appreciate it, Tony. And
thanks, buddy. It's thank you. Again, your enthusiasm and your love for what we do is contagious with all of us. It makes everybody want to work harder.
It makes it so easy to just I was out there for 19 days because I didn't want to be traveling through airports.
Well, we're gonna get in. I can't thank you enough now for that because people don't know that you went above and beyond. And now, please tell. We offered people that if they wanted to stay out and not travel back, if they live in a place where the coronavirus is prevalent, then you have the option. And I really appreciated what you did, and it was flying back and forth when we were doing live shows. Didn't make sense. You were the one person that really took us up on this at that time, and please tell everybody what you did, and I can't thank you enough for it.
We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. This is AEW Unrestricted. So much stuff we've talked about with all of the craziness that happens with finding out you have to tape shows last minute, the gauntlet of that Thursday. We were talking about like just the crazy sacrifices that people made. Like I told Tony basically the first day we were out there for Jacksonville, Washington State, where I live, was one of the first places that really got hit with coronavirus. So a lot of our restrictions started to come up faster. And I just outright said, like, look, we're going to end up having a stay-at-home order pretty soon. Can I just stay out here? It was actually my husband's idea because he knows I'm one of those people that, like, if I was at home and unable to work, I'd go crazy. So I just stayed in Jacksonville. And then I think I got a text from Tony after the second episode. He's like, hey, we're going to Atlanta. So I rented a car and I drove 6 hours and was just there. And it's like Tony's sitting here on this interview putting me and Schiavone over, and he does it for everyone else. It just makes it so easy to work on this team because everyone is just so supportive. Like
right.
I didn't even question it. Like, of course I'm going to live in a hotel room. I don't care. Like they gave me a stove. I can cook. Like, fuck it, whatever. But yeah, it was just, it's just insane. Like how crazy everything was and how quickly everything happened.
I think it came together very, very well. Here's one of the keys to what we were doing. I think was very, very critical. And Tony, you and I had talked about this on a conference call. It would have been very easy, I think, for us to just roll in videotape from a pay-per-view but that's not, I told you, I said, that's a lazy way to doing things. We kept it fresh every week.
I didn't want, and I never wanted to put people at risk and do that. And we talked about doing that, but I'm really proud of the shows we put out without ever having to kind of put those pay-per-views on television, because that's not what that's not what they were designed to be. Like, we're not playing classic matches on right. Dynamite. Dynamite's supposed to be, a fresh new show. It doesn't, in this environment without fans and the crazy spoilers and stuff, you don't necessarily need to go live. We'd only taped one show ever before this, and it was the Jericho cruise.
That's right.
And obviously there, when you have a live audience, there's going to be spoilers, and we had them there.
Well, we had a title change and all that, so it's like that was definitely going to get out. It was a good
place to do it because it was like, there's going to be spoilers, so it's like at least people knew it was going to be a great show, and also that match was classic. And if you hear there's a classic match and a title change, it makes it a must-see episode. So, but I was about right. I told the network, I was like, I bet we'll be down about 10%. We were literally down 10. So exactly. But it was for me, I just wanted to make it possible for us to keep doing shows, but not put anybody under a pressure to do something they felt uncomfortable doing. And luckily, we had so many people who lived around Florida and Georgia. Mm-hmm. And then there were a small handful of people also who weren't around Florida and Georgia who made a big sacrifice to either relocate out there for a little bit or kind of isolate or quarantine in that area. And some people made some long drives, but it got us through, and then we were able to shut down for a full month, for over a month. For me, I'm really proud of the fact we were able to shut down, that we never violated the state orders, and just waited for the state to kind of start to reopen businesses and come back, because I just didn't want to put anybody in that position, and also I didn't want to try to say that we were above any other business or do anything that anybody else wouldn't be able to do. So that's why we tried to get as much stuff in. One of the great things, honestly, probably the best thing we haven't talked much about is we got out of this day injury free.
Yes.
Which is any day you get out of a TV, normally you tape one episode of TV and you get out injury free and you feel great. Because usually it's that's hard to do, but we got out of what could have been over a month's worth of shows injury free. And not only that, but the same people were wrestling over and over and over again. I was very, 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 very concerned about the possibility.
Britt got her nose busted, but she made the most of that. It became a T-shirt.
Top selling T-shirt.
Yeah.
Look, I don't want to make light of it, but we all talked after, and I think we all agreed that's what you she felt very good about it. She was very it was what we all agreed was she was happy it happened, and she she made the choice to keep going.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And and we all agreed it's what you call a happy accident.
Yeah.
Frankly,
Yeah.
she was very happy with it.
Yeah.
And it worked out great. And we talked about the Jericho cruise, and I'd be remiss since you mentioned Britt and all of us and our bonding. I thought before this experience really kind of huddled us all in a foxhole and bonded us, one that had kind of done that before is all on the cruise.
Yes.
And where again, Aubrey refereed match after match, and we had a very small crew. That was the first time we'd ever had. It was actually great, kind of a great test run for what we ended up doing here, because it was the first time we've had such a small little group of people and had to book shows over and over with the same little crew. It was some different people, but it was like still that idea. And on the cruise, that was where I first smartened Britt up, Tony, about what you were doing before you came here to AEW. Right. And then I think for both of you guys, and she's never let you live it down since.
No, it's been tremendous. Starbucks has to love it.
Oh my God.
Well, I know they're getting a free ride on this one. Maybe we can work something out.
They are.
But I can't thank you and everybody that did these shows enough. And now I'm excited to come back tonight with double the roster that we had, literally double the people available from what we've had.
So we're talking a lot about like the positives that come out of this, but there's obviously a couple things that didn't go as well as like we would have wanted it to, like blood and guts, probably the biggest thing, like having to push that back and then losing the gate for that massive show. We had Matt Hardy and Brodie Lee debut to an empty arena. Like, can you talk about that kind of stuff?
I mean, yeah, there's obviously I think what was great for me is that we've been able to at least have, by recreating an audience out there, we've had some semblance of an audience. By far the worst thing has been losing our fans. Our fans are the best thing about our company. So we talk about all the wrestlers we're missing, but it's like we're missing all these fans.
That energy, it's just not there.
We had 12,000 tickets in Newark sold, and now we're doing it, instead of having over 10,000 people out there, we literally have 10 people around the ring, but the 10 is so much better than none. And, wrestling in front of your peers, and you're refereeing out there in front of that crowd, I think it makes difference. I'm a big fan of like the territory, the studio wrestling, and this like small audiences. Frankly, those are bigger audiences than what we've had, but at least it's in some kind of ballpark to what we're doing. And I'm glad there were people out there to watch, Cody and Darby, and then Lance Archer versus Dustin, and see these matches and give that some energy like that. But I would have loved to have those matches in front of, 10,000 people. And, in fact, those matches would have been on schedule if we had done that there. That would have been in Houston. We had all these, you mentioned the gates. I mean, look, like I said, I've tried to do the right thing by people. Things are going so well for us, and things are. I mean, we're doing well. I mean, I have to count our blessings. We're doing very well compared to what and the situation here is good. And we're so blessed. We signed a long extension with our partners at TNT going into this. That's why we've talked a lot about what it took to put the show on. But let's be honest, like why we're doing. I mean, that for AEW, that like our partnership with TNT, putting on great shows, is what is our revenue stream right now, because we're not doing the big events. We were, in 2019 per show, the number one attendance in the world in the wrestling business was AEW. Now we don't do so many shows. We're just doing the one show a week, as compared to doing several shows a week, and we don't do house shows. So it was on a very small basis. But in the last year, we led the world in per show attendance. So like we get really good crowds.
We do.
And we were on our best run. The run through Revolution is the best stuff we've done. It was the best stuff. I love Revolution, and I was so excited about where we were. It felt like we were on such a high, and then a couple weeks later, obviously the shutdown happened. But like I said, we're in a great position because we have this partnership with TNT that's such a great partnership. And also, just to be honest, like wrestling, so much of the behind the scenes that wrestling fans want to know is like they're very interested in economics. Wrestling fans study economics and ratings far more. Like those are the metrics in our sport. Those are the batting average and the touchdowns in our sport. So and Tony's lived that it's, you know, a large percentage of his life. And you're judged on these things. And the gates we're doing, Tony's done some of the hottest business that's been done in the wrestling business. We were on a very good run. And what was happening was we were really between Revolution and Double or Nothing, you know, this was going to be the best run of business we've ever had. And we've lost millions and millions and millions of dollars in live events. And I don't take it lightly, but I can't take it out on the people that work here because it's not their fault. Mm-hmm. And like, we've really never let anybody go here as a company. And like, look, like, I'm going to be honest, like there's going to come a day when someday we're going to have to.
It's a business.
Now's not. Yeah, all businesses have eventually. You're gonna, but now is not the time.
Right.
And it won't be right now. And this is a hard time for everybody. It's a hard time for us, you know. But we have to. I have to look at the bigger picture. And in the big picture, we're in such good shape. And we're the, you know, let's be honest. Economically, we're the second healthiest wrestling company in the world, and that's a pretty great place to be. Right. And we are. And we haven't let a single person go to do it. And I love to have those millions of dollars in the gates back, but they're not coming back. And eventually we'll do shows in these cities and we'll do great. But for the weeks of these weeks are gone, and I have to face that. We were on such a hot run where we had Rochester. It was what was going to be one of our most profitable shows. Yeah. We had a great crowd for Rochester. Right. It was Brodie Lee's hometown. We got Matt Hardy and Brodie Lee coming
a week
in.
Away.
We're doing the Blood and Guts next week. One of our, like, you know, biggest gate, biggest crowd. So we Rochester, do that. Then we're going to in April. I was so excited about where we had such good business coming into April. But again, this hot run between Revolution and Double or Nothing.
I think we had Boston and Philly we were going back to.
We were to start, so we were doing Milwaukee, St. Louis. And again, we'll get back to all these great wrestling markets. Yeah. And I can't wait to play these cities. I was so excited about doing. I'm from, you know, the Midwest, and we've done my hometown Champaign. We've obviously done tons of stuff around the Chicago area. It's really like been a base for us. And I love Chicago. And I mean, again, like to do Revolution a couple miles from my home is like, and that was one of the best nights I've ever had, and the best, you know, best days and best nights. And we'll get back to great times like that. But we had a run of Milwaukee, St. Louis, Boston, Philly, Houston this past month. And, you know, none of that. We had this huge month coming up. We were going to announce, you know, we're doing our first show first shows in California.
Yeah,
we're going to be in LA.
That one hurt.
And then obviously Double or Nothing to be back at the MGM Grand was like so huge for all of us. And it was going to be our 1 year anniversary there. And we're still going to have a great Double or Nothing. And tonight you're going to learn a lot more about the card. I think now everyone knows it's Lance Archer versus Cody for the TNT Championship. But tonight, people are going to learn a lot more about the card, and I'm really excited about what we are doing with Double or Nothing. I wish it was in front of the thousands of people, but I hope everybody will still support us, support the show, because it's going to be the best wrestling show you're going to get on pay-per-view, I promise, in this climate, and the best show we can do, I promise. And also, we've been trying to support the wrestlers and also support a lot of independent wrestlers. By bringing in a lot of independent talent over the last couple months, and trying to do all the right things. And in doing this show, like I said, we've been trying to do everything responsibly. For tonight's show, we'll be testing people upon arrival. In fact, we will have already been doing that last night when this airs, and into today as people come in and keeping people isolated and practicing social distancing backstage and around the show. Very limited production crew. The last time we were in Daly's place, I was literally the only person in Gorilla. There was no Mike King was actually, because we had the trailer of wrestlers that we set up to get some action and some noise. And in that the talent viewing area, we moved out to maximize, because Florida was, it had not hit the peak, and it was the right time to that show we did on March 25th was like super, super spaced out. And we had the group outside. Mike King was out there. There was literally, I'm in Gorilla. There's nobody else from the ring to the truck. Right. There was nobody else from the ring to the truck. And, we going back there, we'll practice as much as we can. But we'll have an audience of wrestlers. I think it's going to be a great show. It'll have some of that energy of the first show we did there, I think. But the spirit of this last show we did, this past week, with a great finish with Archer and Dustin and Cody and Darby and the great action in between with the Best Friends and Orange Cassidy in the no DQ match. I think for us, tonight's show, like I said, we're going to have double the roster, and it's going to be the start of something special, I think, going into Double or Nothing. I'm excited to see everybody. I wish when people are seeing this, I wish it was for us, it was then. I'm like in Spaceballs when they like rewind. I'm like, when will then be now?
Yeah.
Right.
Soon.
Right.
Soon.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's us right now. I wish we could fast forward. If I'm Dark Helmet, Tony's Colonel Sanders. And I wish we could go to ludicrous speed and get
Yes,
that.
1.5.
1.5. 1.5. And
1.5.
I really thank you for staying on 1.5, Tony, because people might listen to this podcast on 1.5. Some people listen to stuff on 1.5, and to keep Tony's energy levels high. Like when I'm like, I always tell him to pretend the podcast is on 1.5, and on these shows,
right.
He must have heard that from me a dozen times.
I sure did. 1.5, 1.5. Okay. So it was important. It was important that the announce would pick up to where there was normally crowd noise or reaction to keep, because it's important.
But those wrestlers around the ring did a great job of making noise and being an audience cheering. Let's go Cody, let's go Darby, and it
helps so much.
It did. It made all the difference in the world. And again, I was like looking for some inspiration, and I would be remiss if I didn't thank Jimmy Fallon and his staff for giving us some inspiration, because that's where I got the idea.
Very cool. We also had guys send us video. The Bubbly Bunch, MJF was on and did some great things. We had things from the Bucks that kept things going and really added a lot to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. The video packages we've gotten in from like MJF, Scorpio Sky,
great,
Bubbly Bunch, which Chris put together. That stuff was tremendous.
Moxley.
Moxley, a great interview he sent in, and then the Young Bucks with their BTE 200 special, and we had the highlight package of that, and the package of Nick getting healthy again, and great stuff, and learn a lot more about Scorpio Sky, and that was great. I mean, we got so much great stuff in that one day, and we put a lot of great stuff in the shows that we were able to interject a lot of great content. But I look at the two of you guys, and I'm just so grateful for what we were able to get done in maybe 26 hours, I guess, technically, including the live show in the first about 26 hours. We did so much stuff, and the ideas in a total of about 27 and a half hours. This all came together so quickly, and what came out of it, to me, will always be really special. And this week's show was really big for me. And I told people I thought it would be the best show anybody's done in a long time. And I think the reaction was, people in an era where people want to pick you apart and want to rip you and stuff on social media. So many people were like, you were right. Like, that's the best thing I've seen in a long time. That was really cool.
I mean, we're all one team. That's all this has proven. Like, we're all in it together.
People ask me,
awesome team.
They asked me, I've had a lot of questions. How is it working with Chris Jericho, and how has it been doing these shows the way you've done them? And I say, and really, this honestly, 37 years in the business, this has revitalized my career. It really has. It's being able to work with Jericho and being able to help organize these shows and make sure that the shows flow right. And we all contact each other via text or email every week to make sure that we say the right thing. And it's just been, it's been wonderful. It really has. And
absolutely wonderful.
And
we're a small startup company. We're a small startup company. We have that vibe. And Aubrey's been in the tech world. But seriously, you've seen startups in action, and the vibe of a startup. And Tony has been around the wrestling business a long time, and he's seen everything. And it's
scrappy. You have to be scrappy.
Well, it was literally 30 years ago. Literally 30 years ago, Tony worked at the World Wrestling Federation and saw the monster. And even though production's very different now, and he sees firsthand now, and Tony's like a very Tony's a renaissance man. Like, again, not just a valuable talent as an announcer, but a very valuable talent as a producer. And I knew that before I ever met Tony, that was something that was really important to him. And I told him when he came here, it was a different opportunity for him, because I'd always heard Tony say before we'd ever met, just as a wrestling fan, I knew that he'd always said he regretted when he left the World Wrestling Federation, because he was doing this production work. He loved working at Coliseum Video, putting shows together. Well, we haven't had as much stuff in post-production for Dynamite, but Tony's been instrumental in putting Dark together, hosting and producing Darks out of Atlanta. And I always tell people that they don't know how valuable Tony is as a producer. But in all of his years in the wrestling business, not only was he so clutch on commentary and did this amazing job as a team with Chris, and they're so great, and I'm so thankful for that, but also putting these shows together with Kevin Sullivan and Jim Morris, right. and our great team. Normally, it's a live show, and I'm sitting down with you guys and Keith Mitchell, but here, this was a lot of post-production stuff, and once we got done with our live shoot with Keith and the guys, Keith kind of was, they went home, and now we've dealt with a lot of stuff in post-production. And then since the shutdown, working from our homes, what an ace you've been, Tone. I just really appreciate it. You've done a great job.
Thanks. It all, you watch the product on TV and you watch the corrections that we make and the inserts that we do. And I'm just thinking, wow, it really, really all came together. But it all goes down. I've often said this, you get out of a product of what you put into it. And if you bust your ass for a product, and you're going to get a good product. And,
absolutely.
And I think we've done that.
Thanks to you guys. And thanks to, all the people.
Literally
that,
everybody.
Set us up. I mean, our whole company, thanks to everybody in the entire company that got us here. And we have our full crew. And again, we had just done what I thought was this amazing pay-per-view. And we were on this amazing run of businesses with a whole team. And then we ended up in a situation where we had about half the team one week. And then we have less than a third of the team, about a quarter of the team, and not just for 1 week, but for over a month. Right. And you do 5 weeks of stuff with that team, and that's that. And then to have it be great stuff, and not just filler, but stuff that I'll be always proud of, and that we'll always remember and hang our hat on. But you've been in the belly of the beast, Tone, and you've seen the machine, and you've been part of the machine, and that we're not that as big of a company, but like you said, the work everybody here does, and the team we have, and you're a huge part of it, both you guys, both on screen and off screen. But I just can't thank you enough. So I just wanted to, while we're all together, I wanted to thank everybody, and particularly thank everybody that helped us put those shows together, and thank both of you.
I think
for
the
that.
hardest thing is going to be not hugging everyone tonight when we're all together. That's been the thing, And in Georgia, that was already the hardest thing. I mean, we were already off. I mean, by April, we were already all off hugs. By late March and April, we'd already all stopped hugging and shaking hands and stuff. Because in the wrestling business, the handshake was a big part of it. I already had, let's be honest, it was a secret we all knew. I had really chapped hands through the winter because the handshake is such a big part of the wrestling business, and you both know I would go wash my hands right after. So I had hands that were literally in January, felt that were already, that's just the thing that I would shake a lot of hands. I would go wash my hand. And so I was very well prepared for this. I was probably the only person who now has to wash their hands less, because I still shake hands. Literally I still wash my hands constantly, but not as much. It was a really special thing to get through, and now to be able to get back. I feel for us, for a lot of people, the worst is not over, and there's going to be there's so many tough times ahead, and I don't take it lightly, and that's why I feel we're so lucky. And we've had hardships, but the bright side is we will eventually get to those towns. We'll do great shows, and that we haven't missed a beat. That we're here, that we're on a good trajectory, and our numbers we're up. To be up in the 18 to 49 is the thing that at the end of the day I'm going to be judged on here, and that we're going to be judged on, and that we're doing very well there, trending well. And then to be up in the 18 to 34, 19%, that I was doing cartwheels
last night when we got the ratings. Especially over something we worked on we all worked so hard. We all worked so hard to get the shows together when we were doing them live, but I just mean also in post-production, like this was a special show. And we knew it. So, and it was such a special show that weeks out, I was telling you that like, I can't wait for this one. Cause it's going to be like, we just need to get to this one. And I was really happy with how we did 2 weeks ago because there wasn't Cody and Kenny weren't in big main event matches. It was Cody was it was Darby and Sammy in a big position opening the show. And like I said, I was really counting on Orange Cassidy versus Jimmy Havoc to pull a number, and they did. And was really then counting on Dustin and Kip to deliver, which again they did. And Dustin, we were able to put Dustin Appreciation Week in focus and put a spotlight on Dustin, which then played very well into the Archer versus Dustin match. All the accolades and focus we'd been able to put on to Dustin. And again, all these people that I just talked about, I'm so grateful for all these people because we're
grateful for your leadership, Tony. We really are.
Very much.
And I know you had to do something. You had an NFL draft you had to contend with.
Oh my God! Yeah,
this was like in the sense of being prepared for the NFL draft.
Yeah,
this was that. Now you talk about silver linings. That was a huge silver lining because for us it was like normally the way our travel schedule takes out the live shows Wednesdays, and on Tuesdays we got production meetings, and we were able I was doing tons of work with you on the show every week, Tony, and the production team and the post-production team, but it wasn't as much as we were doing with the live shows, obviously, in the travel and everything week to week, and producing a live show every week with the stuff we'd gotten so much stuff in the can in this 26-hour period. So I've never been more prepared for the NFL draft. And that was very good with 12 picks and being an attractive destination and undrafted free agency, which is really important to me. If people don't know, that's like my bread and butter thing in the NFL is the last day of the draft and signing undrafted free agents. Three of the defensive backs on our team are players I signed undrafted with not a lot of scouting. And then, they were just guys that I had really good numbers on and had identified that had kind of slipped through the cracks of the traditional scouting process. And that's one of my favorite things to do every year. And I was able to do tons of research. And so, that's been a nice silver lining for the Jaguars.
Tony, you're crazy.
But Tony, listen, as always, we appreciate your time, appreciate everything you've done for us and the wrestling business. And we look forward to tonight. We look forward to what 2020 brings.
Let's plug tonight's matches.
Yes.
So let's plug the show. Let's plug the show a little bit. We got a huge street fight. We've got you take it
Matt
away.
Hardy's going to be wrestling for the first time. He and Kenny Omega together. They're going to be wrestling Chris Jericho back in the ring and Sammy Guevara. We've got Cody going up against the bad boy Joey Janela.
We've got John Moxley taking on Kazarian. We got the world champion back on live action. The first time the world champions wrestled on live television since the beginning of March.
Right,
that's true.
And so that's pretty exciting. And to have him up against Kazarian, they've never wrestled before, which is really exciting.
That'll be a good one.
Moxley wrestled Christopher Daniels on the cruise. They'd never wrestled before.
Yeah.
Right.
And, SCU, Kazarian and Sky have been such great tag team champions. They're the first ever tag team champions. Kazarian's got a great record in AEW.
He really does.
And they've never wrestled before. It's a dream match, and it's the right time for it. And
we're going to be live.
Going to be great.
We're going to be live. Oh, my God.
It's going to have a great show. Lance Archer's going to wrestle. Lance Archer's, like I said, we got Cody wrestling Joey, but also we'll see Lance, and we're building up to their match for this TNT Championship, which I'm super excited about. And also, to see Lance again, anytime you see him, it's kind of must-see because I think he's like one of the hottest people in the business. It's going to be great to have Jericho back in the ring and the debut of Matt Hardy, to finally get Matt Hardy in action, and to see Chris and Matt squaring off, Chris and Sammy are a great team, and I'm excited to see Matt Hardy and Kenny as a team. Yeah, and I think soon the Hangman's going to be back too, and we're going to have our tag team champions in action too, and it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited to see you guys.
So excited.
This has been really fun, though, because I've seen you guys on the company Zooms a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is probably the most the three of us have been able to catch up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, and it feels like we're in catering and, you know, eating together, like, or eating in some hole in the wall in, you know, one of the towns we visit.
Hole in the wall place, really nice. Trying to sneak in White Claw.
Yeah. Tony, thanks for your time, buddy. We appreciate you being out there for us.
Thank you. I appreciate both of you. Thank you, Tony.
We want to remind everybody you can subscribe to AEW, our Unrestricted podcast, for free wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget, as we were saying, Dynamite is tonight, 8 o'clock 7 Central on TNT, and it will be live.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks to Tony Khan. I'm Tony Schiavone.
I'm Aubrey Edwards.
See you next time on Unrestricted.